up guys, this is Nick from Stridewise.com. Today I am reviewing the casual yet sleek kind of work boot, the Charlton from Sutro. Alright, before I go on, I do want to mention Sutro, they didn't send me my last boots for free, they just sent me these boots for free, and they didn't pay for the video beyond giving me a free pair of boots. But if you do like these boots, or if you like any of Sutro's other boots, you can get a discount of 25 bucks with the code Stridewise25 at checkout. So if you like the boots, or if you're just clicking around the site, you find something else that you like, yeah, use that code. I don't know how long it's going to be there though, so you should probably use it sooner rather than later, but nonetheless, there is a discount. But as you will see, this has not affected my review whatsoever. So Sutro is a San Francisco-based footwear company. They are over 35 years old, and San Francisco is very much in the company's DNA. I actually think I said the exact same thing in my last review of Sutro. I reviewed the older boot in the honey leather a little while ago. Very unusual looking boot. I encourage you to check that one out. But yeah, it's very, very San Francisco. The company itself is named after Adolph Sutro, who was a previous mayor of the city of San Francisco. And the Charlton, I think it's named after Charlton Court in San Francisco. But yeah, anyway, pretty interesting looking boot here. So as I mentioned, it's pretty sleek, but it's also very casual, which is an unusual thing to find in a boot. What you got here, of course, is the main thing that points out the fact that this is a very casual boot is the nice, crispy Vibram outsole. This is like industry standard for people who want to get like oil resistant, slip resistant sorts of shoes. It's also industry standard for people who want to make their shoe look less formal. Now, I have got a similar looking, but not the exact same sole on a lot of my boots, including my first pair of boots here, my beloved Red Wing mock toes. I've also got the same on my Thoroughgood mock toes, on my Santalum boots from Indonesia. Not the exact same outsole, but a very similar look. It is pretty rare to find a boot that has like a sort of sleek toe like this that isn't a mock toe with the Vibram outsole. It's not totally unusual, but normally you see it on much more casual sorts of boots. So this is a nice sort of casual sort of look. Relatively versatile. I mean, really hard to dress up, so I guess versatile is probably the wrong word. But again, it's a bit unusual, and it's a nice sort of boot. It goes really well with a t-shirt, with a polo shirt, with flannel, any of that sort of stuff. I also want to draw attention to the fact it is triple stitch along the side of the vamp here, which confers some nice durability, but the stitching is like pretty subtle. You've got some nice dark leather trim going along the eyelets here, the antique eyelets, and also up the top of the shaft around here as well. You've got a gusseted tongue as well. That's very important for a lot of people who want to minimize sand and rocks and that kind of stuff getting into your feet, because nothing's worse than that. It is important to note that these boots are available in a more traditional leather and rubber outsole. If that's the sort of thing you're after, that looks a lot more similar to, your Red Wings, your Wolverines, those sorts of boots. But I'm a pretty big fan of this Vibram outsole here. Now, from a distance, do they work? Yes. I think they're nice casual boots. They're also a bit unusual. They're family casual. It is rare to get a round plain toe boot that works very well with t-shirts and so on. This boot does it. It's very good. But when you get close up, I definitely have a few issues with this. The most frustrating, I gotta say, is the speed hooks, which are on crooked. A lot of them are on crooked. And the waxy laces are pretty hard to get into the speed hooks, which is annoying. Also, the top eyelet is a regular eyelet, not a speed hook. So, it's a bit weird having that combination of speed hook and regular eyelet. The biggest issue, though, has got to be this leather. So let's talk about it. Now, this leather is the mahogany leather. It also comes in black, but this is mahogany. It's relatively thin at 1.6 millimeters, and they get it from Lafarque Tannery in Leon, Mexico. That's a place that sounds bad with my accent. It's Lafarque. It's not Lafarque, but yeah, Lafarque Tannery. It's developed with plant-based oil and beeswax, and some other plant-based waxes are used during tanning as well. They also give tone and color to the leather with vegetal creams, which refers to creams that get their color from natural sources like pomegranate and tree bark and stuff like that. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like this leather. I don't like it. The toe is like quite fine, but on both of the shafts of these boots, and especially the left one here, it's just covered in loose grain or grain break. I'm never sure which one is which, but it just looks like old man skin. Now, to be fair to Sutro, their top finish is natural. They don't use any finishing on the top layer, which in their words is, quote, why you can see all the nicks and marks of hide, natural stretch marks, pores, and so on. So that's kind of their thing. I said the same thing about the older boot. Like, they make boots that don't look shiny and new. And I mean, it looks kind of old. The older boot, it looked kind of old even when it was new. Now, there is a market for people who don't like these sorts of hyper smooth, shiny leathers, who like imperfections in their leathers. And if that's you, that's totally cool. But like, as a guy who has seen a lot of boots out there, There's a difference between boots where you can see scratches and scars from the animal's eventful life. Kudu, like antelope leather, has a lot of that. People really like it for that. There's a difference between that and this sort of leather, which just looks like a really stretched out skin, and it's not very attractive at all. But that's just my opinion. I'm being subjective here. Maybe you like it. I'm giving you a good close look here. If this is the sort of leather you like, I've now had a decent enough experience with this brand. I've had these and I've had the olders. They give you boots that look a little bit old when you get them. If that's what you like, go for it. Just personally, I'm not a big fan. So real quick, when it comes to leather care, they say that when you get scratches on it, you can just like rub them out with a damp cloth. They say when they get a bit dirty, rub it with a damp cloth. They even say when you need to bring some shine back into the boots, rub it with a damp cloth. The reason they keep saying rub it with a damp cloth is because beeswax is used in the development of these boots, and that's what they call a lifelong conditioner. So vigorously rubbing the shoes with a cloth or with a horsehair brush, which I would probably recommend be a little bit better, that sort of activates the beeswax, brings it back to the surface, helps to restore some of the luster to the boots. That said, they also sell their own water-based cream. They have like a care kit actually, which comes with a nice cloth and a nice applicator and a nice water-based cream for restoring the leather. And it's only $10, so it's actually not a bad deal. I would recommend just getting that. A lot of people complain that these shoes are not waterproof, which is a dumb complaint because they're Goodyear welted boots. They're very, very rarely waterproof, you know? So I don't consider that a downside. If you are very concerned about the water resistance of these boots, you should remember that it has a 360-degree Goodyear welt, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And that's very good at improving water resistance. If you want to further enhance the water resistance, a lot of people use something like Jason Mark's Repel, like a waterproofing spray, that sort of stuff. Then again, there are a lot of people who worry that's going to suffocate the leather. If you want more traditional routes of waterproofing your leather, you can use mink oil. They kind of say that's an option. Sutro says that could be an option for the leather. Mink oil will nonetheless darken the leather. That's kind of like a downside of mink oil. So, I don't know, those are your options. You can use Jason Mark's Repel if you want, might suffocate the leather. Mink oil might darken the leather. For my money, my favorite conditioner is, what is this? Cobbler's Choice. Cobbler's Choice leather conditioner. That's because it has beeswax, which helps to improve the water resistance, but it also has a lot of lipids and enzymes and that sort of stuff to help to soften and nourish and extend the longevity of the leather itself. So I think I've had a look at this leather. I think Cobbler's Choice would be fine on it. Otherwise, yeah, mink oil if water resistance is super important, and a waterproofing spray if water resistance is really, really important. So once again, this is the Vibram wedge outsole. It's a very classic sole that's very common on boots. It's a natural gum-like rubber. It's hardy, it's grippy without being too commando-y, like it's not too chunky. It's a good sole. It's super informal, again, but you know they're getting into it. After that, there's a leather sole, which they tell me is the thickest leather sole in the market. An unusual midsole of hardened paper, like cardboard. There's a layer of cork filler and a metal shank as well. And the shank confers stability and a bit of arch support and longevity to the structure. Finally, there's a removable insole cushion. You can see my little toes here. That's further proof that I have been wearing these shoes. And it's high density polyurethane with closed pores. So closed pores differentiates them from open pore polyurethane that you get in running shoes. Closed pores is more for walking shoes and shoes you spend a lot of time standing in. Of course, everything is held together with a Goodyear welt. That's the way the upper is attached to the sole. That's really good for water resistance and for making it easy to resole when the time comes. One thing I do want to emphasize here is that there's a difference between 270-degree Goodyear welts, which is when it kind of ends around the heel, and 360-degree Goodyear welts, which is what you've got here, where it goes all the way around the heel. The 270-degree welt, a lot of guys like for aesthetic reasons, even though it's a teeny tiny bit less water resistant than a 360-degree Goodyear welt. When I spoke to Sutro, they said that they're very proud of this boot because the welt around the heel is minimal. They say that you can see the welt extending at the perimeter of the front of the foot, the forefoot, but it's much more subtle at the rear of the foot. If you take a close look at it, no, it doesn't really do that. It looks just the same from the front as it does from the back. So if you do not like 360-degree welts, you won't like this shoe. But I do like 360-degree welts myself. They're nice and water resistant. I think the pros outweigh the cons. But yeah, this is not really a combination 270, 360. It's just a 360 welt. Now, as for the fit and sizing, the boots are currently, and this information can always change, right now it's available in 7.5 to 14, and they stopped doing half sizes after 11.5, but I am 11.5, so that worked out pretty well for me. It wasn't a big deal, and the shoes run true to size as well. The majority of boots out there, and the boots that I own, like Red Wing and Wolverine and Thursday, all these guys, I have to go down a half size to an 11, My true size is 11.5. These are 11.5 and they fit fine. They're pretty tight. Tight's the wrong word, but they hew quite close to the foot. So if I had really thick socks, and if that's what you're planning on wearing them with, I would consider going up a half size. So that's something to think about. I do want to caution that they do not have any wider widths available or narrower widths. So that's going to be a bummer for a lot of guys out there. That's always a downside for a brand when they do not do wider widths because it's pretty common. Now, you could maybe order a half size up or a full size up. I know a lot of guys like to do that, and a lot of times that does work for people with wider feet. But given that I would consider this a pretty form-fitting last, that's more of a gamble that's going to work out with Sutro than it is with a lot of other brands out there. So I don't know, keep that in mind. Now, as the actual comfort itself, the shock absorption is very good. That's a big upside for the brand. Now, despite the fact that it has a shank, the arch support, it's not the best in the entire world. It's decent. It's not terrible arch support, but it's not a big highlight of this shoe. The fact that it is leather lined means the break-in period was pretty easy. I didn't get any blisters or anything like that. So that is an upside. Shock absorption, good. Arch support, kind of okay. The lining, not the best, but it did prevent me from getting blisters, which I'm pretty sure is the main point of lining anyway. So I'm reasonably happy with the comfort. I'll give it a B, right? Like, so it's not the best in the world, but a B is still a pretty good grade. Now, as far as the price goes, a pair of these boots is going to cost you between like $260 and $290. These are $275 today, but the prices change a lot with these sorts of brands. But yeah, that's roughly what you're gonna look to pay. Now, in the world of Goodyear welted boots, anything under $300 is considered inexpensive. That's just like the threshold that goes with it. People who have only ever worn sneakers, they always think it's a ridiculous thing to say, but if you know anything about boots, you know Goodyear welted boots, under 300 bucks. That's a pretty decent deal. Like, I would not raise an eyebrow if these were $50 more expensive. And I think that's because I think Sutro does like a lot of online stuff, online marketing. They don't have much overhead. And also the boots are made in Mexico, to be fair. So that helps keep the price down a little bit. It's leather lined. It's got a decent shock absorption. It's got a shank, all of these things. Yeah, they are hallmarks of boots that are normally over 300 bucks. And again, I am not a big fan of the leather quality. And there's also a couple of other QC issues as well. So they're not the best boots in the world, but they're not priced like the best boots in the world either, so I don't know, price is okay. So why should you consider getting these boots? They're under 300 bucks, pretty rare for Goodyear welted boots, 360-degree Goodyear welt as well, which means it's pretty water resistant. I also quite like the Vibram sole, Vibram, combined with the sort of sleek upper. That's a pretty rare thing. I mean, it's not very, very rare, but again, to get this combination of like the sort of sleek round toe with a Vibram outsole, it does do a nice job of conferring like, you know, casualness to an outfit while also sort of demonstrating that you do sort of give a crap about the way you look. So I like that about this particular model. It's pretty cool in that regard. It's also leather lined, which is nice. I didn't get any blisters breaking it in. The boot has pretty good shock absorption. That's another good thing. The fact that it has a removable insole as well, that's a big part of why the shock absorption is good. It's also, as I mentioned, a good thing for people with flat feet or orthotic problems. If they need to have an orthotic in the boot, they can do that. There's room for it, which isn't always the case with boots, especially boots with this sort of sleek-ish toe. So that's an upside. And then finally, they're handcrafted, not handmade. Again, handcrafted means like, you know, a lot of the process is done by hand. The Goodyear welting would be done with a machine, but nonetheless, it is handcrafted. It's under 300 bucks, pretty stylish. You know, they're not too bad. All right, now there are a few things wrong with these boots. The laces are a little bit short. This is a tiny thing. I'm gonna like work up to the worst things. I'm starting with the small ones. Laces are a little bit short. I know they look like they're working fine now, but when they're actually on your foot and they're laced all the way to the top and you have like the normal gaps between the laces you get when you're wearing the boots, I can't really get them, I can't tie them when they're through the top eyelets. They have no other widths available. That's a big bummer for a lot of guys with wider feet. I know many of them, they're gonna be sad about that. Also, they are very casual boots. This is not a downside. I shouldn't be framing it as a downside. You already know this before you buy the shoes, but just keep in mind, you cannot dress up these shoes at all. They're casual. They're casual with like an interesting twist, you know, this the sleek toe with the Vibram. It's interesting. Yeah, it's just casual. They are still casual. Also, the speed hooks, they're on crooked. That's annoying. That's a quality control issue. It's hard to get the laces through them. Also a bit annoying. Some people think it's bad that they're not waterproof, but that's another thing I don't actually consider a con. I wanted to mention it because it seems to surprise a lot of reviewers out there, but you should never expect Goodyear welted boots to be waterproof. So that's not a downside. The real downside here, besides the speed hooks, which is my second biggest complaint, my first biggest complaint, this leather, it is hideous. I hate it. Now, a lot of people are gonna like it, as I mentioned earlier, because they preferred this look of, it doesn't even look like beat up leather. They prefer the look of unfinished leather, I suppose, which is how Sutro tries to frame the look of their leather. But I gotta say, I think when I see this boot and Sutro boots appear on online forums for boots like, you know, the Goodyear Welt subreddit, they almost always get torn apart for the look of their leather. They consider it pretty low quality. And I've got to agree with them. The toes look fine, but the shaft here, this super graininess, I don't like it. You might like it, that's fine. I'm a reviewer. I think reviews by nature are subjective, so maybe I shouldn't say in general it's a bad shoe. But if I spent 250 bucks on a pair of shoes, I'd be pretty bummed out if the leather looked like this after just a few weeks. All right, those are my thoughts on the Charlton from Sutro boots. Look, I know there's a lot of people out there that like this sort of distressed look to leather. If they were in black, I think it would have been fine. But yeah, brown with this little distressing, I didn't really like it. But there are plenty of people who do. I don't know, it might be you. If it's you, there's that discount code you can use. But otherwise, make sure you subscribe because I've got a lot more other boot reviews coming up. And now you know that I'm not always nice about boots. I will say it if there are things I don't like about the boots. So I'm super honest. Yeah, anyway, subscribe. Lots of boot reviews, lots of jeans reviews, other men's fashion kind of stuff coming up.